Hello there. So I wanted to do a segment on the electrical system in the tiny house. I struggled with this for a long time, but finally managed to figure it out. And so I'm hoping this will help somebody else as well. So for my tiny house power, I'm not doing it off the grid. I'm not doing solar panels. I'm having a 30 amp feed, which comes from the pole, go into the tiny house. I've opted for an RV panel. To be specific, it is a Progressive Dynamics power converter system. PD4045KA is the model number. And what this thing does is it incorporates both 110 and it has a 12 volt system component. Now, when I first got this thing, the instructions are horrible. I had a lot of trouble figuring it out, so I'm gonna try to explain it here. The way it works is you feed in your 110. So here's the row of 110 breakers, right? And you have a ground bar, you have a neutral bar, and then over here, this whole side of it is your down converter. So this converts down to 12. That's what I'm going to be using for lighting exclusively in here. I'm going to do only LED lighting, but I do need the 110 for the hot water heater, and I need it for the Insinolette, which I use, and I need it for the stove, plus various outlets throughout the house, including an exterior one. So here's what I did. These breakers do not come with the unit, so you have to buy these. Let me just preface all this by saying that I am not an electrician. If you are in any way uncertain about what you're doing, don't take my word for it. Consult a professional, all right? Because I am not an electrician, but I did figure this out. So the way these breakers work is that bottom row there just holds it in place via this bottom clip piece, and then this top piece slots into that top row, and that top row connects all the breakers. So this first one, this 30 amp one, I have, let's see, can we see that? Going into it, I have this hot lead right here. That's going to be your power in. That power in also needs to go to your neutral and your ground, right? So you have three of them. This side of the box becomes pre-wired, so you'll see a black, white, and green that's already sort of pre-configured, and that one black goes to right there. That's your 120 hot. Now, this 120 hot is not hooked up to anything, so it took me a little while to figure out that one of these breakers, one of these 110 breakers, needs to supply the 12 volt side, right? The converter side. So I took a little patch wire, and this patch wire connects into this this final breaker here. That gets you your, once it's on, that gets you your power over on that side. This is a whole nother story over here, but it has these are your outputs. They're bridged with fuses, standard sort of car fuses. And over here you have hot and neutral. There's no ground component over here. This is also another neutral. And the way that this is going to work is I can't terminate all the wires on this one. So I'm going to go out through the back and come up and hook it into this neutral bar. And then I have all my hots up here. And I'm going to bring in all the various lines. So the lines will come in, they'll hook into the hot respectively, and terminate on the neutral bar. So these hots are all these wires coming out of here, I brought them up here for convenience, and they all come out of the back there. See that? Those all come pre-wired. Now, back to the 110. So we have these breakers. We have this first one being supplied with the incoming power. It feeds the rest of the breakers, right, via the bar up here, which connects them all via this thing that they clip in. So when you clip that in, you should always use the same type of breaker. This is called a square D breaker. And you'll notice they're all square D breakers. Okay. So back to where I was going with this. You got your input here, feeds the rest of the breakers, and I have now installed a an AC line here. That's this one, and that runs all the way through here. That was a little hard to do in the corner, but I drilled in from both sides and then fed it through. That goes to outlet number 1, which is down here. This is all underneath the guest second bedroom bed. That's going to be the water heater. It continues on, goes to a box there where it branches off up top. In the loft, I have I used one of those outlets that's got both a standard outlet and 2 USB ports. I'm going to be doing, mostly like phone charging overnight and stuff. And then this continues on to an outlet there. Then I have an outlet back there. And I have one more outlet up in the secondary loft up there. I don't know, I figured I'd put one up there for good measure. So that's the entire line. The only tricky part was really this one. I drilled these holes. I'm going to be feeding some of the 12-volt lighting stuff through there too. But this is effectively the one of the 110 runs, and then the other one is going to go off in this direction. It's going to supply the toilet right there, the Incinelette. That's going to be a dedicated run. And then the other ones are going to go back there to the kitchen area. One's going to be, that line is going to have an outlet above the counter, and then also the stove. It's going to be an induction, 1800 watt induction, and then I'm going to terminate it into an exterior outlet. And that's effectively all the 110. So going back to this thing, this right now supplies the run that I just showed you that exists. The second one is going to be my dedicated Incinelette one. This third one is going to go towards the kitchen, and that's that. This one really just is where the power comes in, right? Feeds these 3. And this third one, like I said, also supplies power to the to this side, which should be fine. That's the water heater, and that side should be okay, hopefully. I might have to mess with the breakers here and see if I need bigger breakers or not, but we'll see. So, that's all well and good, but I wanted to find out if I had actually done this right. So what I did, again, this may not be recommended, but what I did is I took one of those surge protectors and just cut the surge protector part off. And this is now what feeds into here. The black from this goes into this one. Neutral goes into the neutral bar, and ground goes into the ground bar. So this way, I'm sort of simulating the incoming power. And what that allows me to do is it allows me to test out these lines. So let me show you. Let me show you what that looks like. So you take a standard, I'm going to put the phone down for a second, hold on. Take a standard plug, plug it in. Okay. Alright, so now we have power coming to this thing. As I said, the power comes in here, right? That breaker's currently off. And then the 110 run, the completed one, I have coming out of this breaker, right? So if we flip this on, and that provides power to all three. And then we flip on the third one, fourth one technically. That one now supplies this 110 line. You will have noticed there were no blue arcing sparks or anything similar, which is already a good sign. And I've got this trusty wiring checker to make sure that you have ground, to make sure that everything isn't hooked up improperly. And when we plug that in, we see that we have in fact done it correctly. Correct, 2 yellows. This will show you if you have any mistakes. But on these outlets, effectively over here on the right, some of the screws are of a golden color, some are of a silver color. Silver is always going to be neutral. Gold is always going to be, or the darker one is always going to be hot, the black wire. And down here you have your ground wire. So that's where the ground continues on. If I had messed up the ground or similar, this little device would tell me as much. Open ground. I think that would be that top one up there. But we've got ground. So that's the 110 piece. I feel rather confident that I've done that fairly well, and hopefully that's a help to some of you who are struggling with this as I did. But this is really it's fairly logical, and it was something that like I said, I was able to figure out, and with help of this, being able to test it is of course a great thing. So anyway, that's that. More to come on the 12 volt side.